The biggest kind of turnaround for people, at least the tangible thing that they love most, isn't necessarily the time that they get back, but the feeling of being back in control. And one of the nice things about hiring someone like us or someone else who can create systems for you is you don't have to hire somebody who can create systems as a salary. You can do it as a project. We believe it's more about how you use a tool and not necessarily what tool you're using. Now that said, I definitely have my own favorites, and that would be a lot of times people want to hire a VA to organize their company's files and create a whole flow because they think, oh, this is housekeeping. Well, it's only housekeeping if you got a good system.
The tools are only as good as the user. It actually takes discipline. So what happens when things are set up and then someone doesn't use it?
That's a great question. And I get so frustrated about setting things up and then them not being used. And that's why we've developed. And then there's one other key component that I think is absolutely critical, and that is
the enemy of clarity is chaos and confusion, especially for entrepreneurs. Clarity is the foundation of the successful business that you want, that you don't want to become a slave to. So how many times have you misplaced files, forgot where or how to access things, or just felt a lack of control over your emails, files, systems, etc.? In this episode, my guest, Shawn Lemon, he's the king of digital organization. We chatted through some of the most common issues that entrepreneurs face that create confusion and chaos in their businesses, that cause them to lose a couple hours a day, really dealing with things in the business that do not create success and that typically lead to frustration. We talk about some key systems, processes, and tools for you to become more organized and experience a better sense of clarity so that you can gain back more of your time to focus on what matters and to be able to do more of what you enjoy. He was also kind enough to provide access to a free organization guide, which you can grab for free at thedigitalorganizer.com/franchise empire. Now, if you want to buy a franchise in the next 12 months, you should check out my free franchise masterclass at franchiseempire.com/masterclass. And if you want to work with me and my team on finding or buying a franchise or resale business, then you can go to franchiseempire.com/ZTPF and you can schedule a free call, and we're happy to see how we can answer your most pressing questions and point you in the right direction. With that said, sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Franchise Empire Show. They say Rome wasn't built in a day, and building your empire doesn't happen overnight. My name is Tarek Johnson, and owning franchises is what helped me go from employee to employer and start building my empire for my family. So this podcast is for you, the empire builders. For those of you who want to build something that stands the test of time. This is for those of you who are crazy enough to believe that you can make the dream in your head come to life. This podcast is all about bringing you real people who are building real empires so you can get inside their mind and heart and get proven strategies and actionable insights that will catapult you to build, grow, and scale your empire. All right, welcome everyone to the Franchise Empire Show. I'm here with Shawn, and we're tuned up to have an interesting conversation today. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk.
Likewise. So, why should people listen to this podcast episode?
Well, because if you're drowning in emails, you can't find files. If you feel like you need to level up your operations and you're tired of not feeling really in control of your business, that's what we're going to talk about today is how to get organized and feel like you're back in control.
Nice. This is a fitting topic because I feel like there's a certain point of busyness, or at least I used to be a perfectionist, like I'd want everything, typical type A OCD. And I've just gone in the complete. I've realized that in order to really grow, having things like really perfect it can be like the brakes on growth. So my inbox as we speak has as another one just comes in 6,003 unread emails. Um, so I'm excited to talk about this topic. Although I'm about to hire someone this week to manage my inbox full time. So what are what are some of the problems that entrepreneurs face when it comes to like organization, and why is being digitally organized, why is that, what does that even matter?
Yeah. Well, in the beginning stages, revenue needs to outpace operations, right? For your business, you've got to have plenty of revenue to coming in. It's if you focus completely on operations at the beginning, then you're not getting revenue, and you've got a really organized business that's kind of going nowhere. But once you get going, or if you're about to start something new and you need to create some more margin, that's when being organized really comes in handy. Because the biggest kind of turnaround for people, at least the tangible thing that they love most, isn't necessarily the time that they get back, but the feeling of being back in control. And uh, there's so many reasons for it, but when you're dropping the ball and you're having a hard time, people are having a hard time getting in contact with you, and it's starting to get embarrassing, and you're the bottleneck, it's time to get organized. When you're constantly tracking down files over and over again, it's like trying to drive somewhere and you're in a hurry and you're hitting red lights all the time. Like, how frustrating is, and how many times do you get knocked out of the flow because you can't find what you're looking for? If you've been like filing your emails or filing like attachments and important information in email, well, it's a losing battle because there's this incoming tide of emails that we're constantly getting hammered with. So it really hampers you getting into the flow, staying on top of things and making sure that stuff doesn't really fall through. And it makes, when you start working with other people, it makes that so much easier because they are not having to pick up for your slack and your disorganization. And so you end up paying other people to just handle something for you, when really we could put some systems in place so that you may not have to hire that person. Or if so, you're only hiring them for a limited number of hours to handle certain things. And they're really focused just on emails from people. And we've eliminated all of the other stuff like that. But I think about working with contractors, hiring other people to do work with you. They can get the work done, but then when you need to go and find it later on down the road, that's where things just really get messy, and hard to work in that environment later on down the road. And it's just sand in the cogs, trying to get things done.
So our team have looked into a few hundred franchises and put together a list of 5 low-cost franchises that all make $1 million or more, and that have a proven track record of both happy and profitable franchisees. So if you have a net worth of at least $150,000 and you want to see if the territory that you want is still available for any of these franchises, then you can go to franchiseempire.com/check territory. All right, let's get back to the episode. Yeah, I've never experienced that before. Yeah, I'm obviously being sarcastic. Tell me about your world. Like, what is it that you do? I mean, naturally someone might go, "Oh, okay, this they're talking about being organized. That sounds like a boring topic. I'm not going to listen." But I given our operation and how complex things have become, I definitely know the value of organization. But invite us into your world.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Luke. Uh, Luke is one of our clients, and he runs a Chick-fil-A. And he came to us because his inbox was overloaded. He was hiring an assistant and wanted that person to be set up for success, and wanted a really good system to be able to truly offload email, and as much as possible to not have to answer hardly anything if possible. His tax season was just a nightmare. because he's got rental properties. He's got the Chick-fil-A, he's got another business, and he's doing all kinds of different things. And so taxes were one of his like most dreaded activities of the year. It took him a really long time to do because everything was so disorganized. And the team, and so with Chick-fil-A, they run really lean on the back end for that back office. And so I think it's like 8, 10 team members, something like that. And and people were having a hard time finding what they were looking for. It's like they had an official Google Workspace account, but they had files in Dropbox. He had stuff in his personal Google Drive. His employees in the back office had some files locally on their computer and some stuff in Google Drive, but they weren't really using it right. So they were having to lean on him a lot to find specific things that they needed to get done. So we created a new folder structure that made sense for how Chick-fil-A's run. We consolidated all the files from his different teammates and from his place to separate his personal from his work. And so now filing taxes is a breeze. Everyone can find what they're looking for in seconds. He's got an incredible email workflow with an assistant, so he barely has to check email. And then we have basically saved him an entire salary of his hiring, or his talent director is what they call him. So the hiring manager. We put a template in place for Asana for the whole hiring process and did that with a bunch of other things. But just that one thing, that hiring manager ended up leaving for another opportunity, and they still haven't replaced them. And it's been a year and a half, and they don't have any intention to, because someone else is able to pull double duty and just run this Asana project template. We systemized what a person was doing before, and now it's very simple to run. Now we'll have some tweaks to do here in the upcoming months because he's been doing so well. They just offered him a second location, so which is pretty rare for Chick-fil-A. You only get 3 tops. So clearly he's doing really well and managing it and doing an incredible volume with that store. And it's just things run really smoothly when you start putting systems in place and then you just run those systems rather than kind of ad hocing. I can get it together and bullying your way through. You got to do that to a certain point. But then once you get some breathing room, then it comes back around. And that's what happened to him. COVID happened right as we were initially talking. And then it was extremely difficult for hiring through that whole time. And then, a couple years later, once they really stabilized, he had a great director of operations. He came back around. He's like, all right, I'm ready. I've got the bandwidth. Let's do this. And so, about 4 months, we overhauled a complete back office system for him and then templated it out. So now we're selling it to other Chick-fil-A operators.
Yeah, that's that's a really cool story. What I find is that a lot of entrepreneurs are overwhelmed, stressed out, constantly working, putting a lot of time into the business, especially the first couple of years. It's just like, I mean, you and I, before we, started recording, we were talking about, how you have a 2-year-old and we have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, and life is very demanding. But like that first, the first, I think 3 years is the hardest with kids, or at least the most demanding. Once our son got to around 3, 4 years old, things got a lot more independent, a lot more hands off. And I use that same analogy with businesses, which is that, really the first 3 years, that's your baby. It's depending upon, you or someone for everything. And it's interesting because I do think that there are a lot of entrepreneurs, especially people that get into franchising, that they've never owned a business. They're used to being in a corporate environment, so they're used to those things being set up for them, or having team members to rely on, that
Got an IT
they
team.
yeah, and they don't really necessarily have to think about, oh, if I got all these people surrounding me, or if I go on vacation, this is covered. I set up my out of office. I say contact this person, and I can kind of check out. It doesn't really work that way, as an entrepreneur. And I found that sometimes early entrepreneurs really struggle because they don't know how to delegate, they don't know how to set up systems and processes and kind of all those things. And what you were saying before around missing opportunities, I've seen that happen actually. I know one specific person that they're more operations focused. That's like their natural skill set, and they bought into a franchise that requires a lot of relationships and sales, and they would neglect. We would refer people to them, and they would. It was like, oh yeah, I talked to the person, but I haven't heard back in a week. It's like what? And they're focusing on the wrong thing in their business. They're trying to put out these fires or handle things on the back end, as opposed to focusing on the things that that generate revenue.
Yeah, it's a common thing, and you the faster you can get those systems put in place, the better. And then once you've got those systems put in place, then you can have someone else take over that. And as quickly as you can, it's like, let's have somebody do that so that I can focus on the next part. But one of the nice things that or one of the nice things about hiring someone like us or someone else who can create systems for you is you don't have to hire somebody who can create systems as a salary. You can do it as a project. And so you're not relying on these, A players who have got these incredible minds that'll, build everything for you. You can do it as a project. And then you've got somebody who just runs it. So you end up running a leaner team because you just got good systems and a partner who can help you tweak some stuff, but without the salary overhead.
Interesting. So what's an example of that? What does that look like, and what would that system look like where it's like, okay, I don't actually need an individual dedicating hours and labor to it.
So, well, that hiring one from Chick-fil-A is great because instead of one person keeping track of the whole process and really not doing a good job handling and knowing where everyone is at, because that's a lot of hiring, 150, 200 employees, up and down throughout the season, and a lot of turnover. The whole team didn't have visibility into the hiring process and where they're at. So if someone wasn't out, someone else couldn't step in. So by creating that template for them and this whole project to be able to track everything, then anyone else can step in and and they don't have that talent director anymore. It's someone else's. It's a way cheaper salary. Is just handling that on top of their other duties. So that's a salary gone just from there. Or somebody, a lot of times people want to hire a VA to organize their company's files and create a whole flow because they think, oh, this is housekeeping. Well, it's only housekeeping if you got a good system. At the beginning, you need more of an architect to actually figure out the flow and understand all of the different parts of the business. So you would need to have someone with a lot of experience in business operations who's seen a business grow, adapt, and has been involved in that process, at least visibility, if not necessarily the one building it, then some sort of experience to be able to kind of help create a good flow so that things are set up that when you hire a new marketing contractor, you know exactly what folder you're going to share with them so that they have access to everything that they need in a couple of clicks. Or someone else, we're going to bring them in on operations, then, oh, yeah, I'm going to share these folders with them. And it's very simple. Onboarding is really fast and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're speaking my language because I naturally gravitate towards operations. Actually, I've really had to, over the years of specifically starting this business of franchise empire and the YouTube channel over the last 4 years or so, really had to get into sales and marketing mode because, as you know, you spend too much time in operations. You've got this really well run business that doesn't have enough customers or revenue, and so yeah, it's cool. I love this stuff, and setting up like processes and flows. I really kind of nerd out on it, and our team has done a pretty good job of of setting those things up. I remember actually when our current director of marketing, he came to me and he goes, "We're on your personal Google Drive." And so whenever like we were working with all sorts of video editors at the time, we had a few different ones, and they're like, when if they have to clear out space or once we remove them, all the files leave. And I was like, "Oh, oh, okay, that's an issue." And so, fortunately, he's real good at the whole system stuff. So it was this huge undertaking to shift everything to then a business like Google Workspace and getting everything like migrated over. Um, and I could see how, especially franchisees, like they would have number one, no idea how to do that. And if someone like if he wouldn't have told me that and handled it, it was one of those things where I was like, I don't care. Like I get it's a problem, but I'm not investing any time or energy in that. And it was something that I could, delegate to our team. But our director of marketing is a highly paid full-time W2 that, maybe a franchise owner may not, have the wherewithal, especially in the beginning, to hire. So tell me about what are like some of the key tools, systems, resources, and things like that that you guys use or kind of advocate for.
Yeah. So we're platform agnostic, meaning like if you've got something that you really love, we can usually work within that because we believe it's more about how you use a tool and not necessarily what tool you're using. Now, that said, I definitely have my own favorites, and that would be Google Workspace because I love the email. I think their email system is the best. And I know a lot of people don't like gmail.com or Google Workspace or Google Drive on the web. If you're in that camp, you can use apps. You install Google Drive for desktop and you can sync the files to your computer just like you do on Dropbox. So there's a lot of things that we can do to keep things familiar with you, but still be using the Google system. And the reason why I like it so much is especially when you're wanting to hire a younger crowd, they're already familiar with Google and they are not nearly as comfortable in the Microsoft environment. So, depending on the businesses that you're working with and the people that you're hiring, we really need to take that into account when we're picking a platform. But Microsoft and Google are my top two. I'd rather see you on the Google end of things if it makes sense for you. When it comes to password management, we're really big on having a good password manager. I think it makes a massive difference just throughout the day in those really frustrating hiccups when you're trying to get a job done and you're locked out because of two-step verification. These problems are solved. Man, I've got crazy stories about passwords, but we like the app. It's called One Password. It's the number one and then the word password with no space in between. It's a phenomenal app. And then for project management, it's either Asana or ClickUp. And I like Asana better because it's more on rails. Like you don't have to really think about how you're supposed to build it out. It's set up in a way built around teams, projects, different sections of that project, the tasks themselves, some milestones and things. And it's a lot easier to work with versus something like ClickUp, which gives you a lot of freedom. It's trying to be that one app that rules them all. And I really don't like that philosophy. And it just requires too much of you to figure out how to use the tool and build it to your own needs. But in some cases, that's really phenomenal for certain people. So we kind of trying to figure out which boat that they should really be floating in. So.
Hey, so if you want to figure out if you should buy a franchise and learn the fastest and easiest way to figuring out the best franchise to buy and everything you need to know about the process, then you'll want to go get access to our Franchise Buyers Academy. In our Franchise Buyers Academy, you'll get a behind-the-scenes look into specific franchises and exactly how much money they are making. You'll get simple formulas for finding money-making franchises and a blueprint on how to scale them into a franchise empire that can be sold for a lot of money later on. You'll be able to finally answer the question on, should I buy a franchise? Now you can get access at franchiseempire.com/FBA. Now let's get back to the episode. Now, one of the things that have found to be true is that the tools are only as good as the user, or even the systems, meaning it actually takes discipline. So what happens when things are set up and then someone doesn't use it because they get undisciplined? Like how do you influence the behavior part of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I get so frustrated about setting things up and then them not being used. And that's why we've developed our business around a do it with you model so that we teach people how it works. And we are building the system together. Because if someone else builds it for you, what do they know about your business? What do they know about what's important to you and what you visit frequently and what you don't, and all of those sorts of things? So we want to do it together. So we take our clients through a process of, say, if we're doing files, of consolidating everything together, and we're doing that together, clearing things out, archiving the stuff that we want to keep but isn't really relevant anymore. And then we can focus on the smaller subset of files that are relevant for today and are going to set us up for the future, and start building systems around that. And we do that, all together over screen sharing, so that when we run into issues and we have questions of, well, how does this apply? We're talking through it together so it becomes your understanding and your knowledge and not just mine being applied to that system. So that's a big part of it, is training and creating a system that works well, and makes sense to how you work. And then there's one other key component that I think is absolutely critical, and that is teaching people how to use shortcuts and how to make these small preference changes on your computer, so that instead of you downloading a file, say your mortgage company delivers your 1098 in January, and you need to download that file to your taxes file and get it over to your accountant. So you go to Chase, you click that download button, and automatically it's just going to put it in your downloads folder. Then you've got to go find where the download was, grab that file. It's not going to be named in a way that say if you have multiple properties, which one is it for? So you have all this work to do, and are you actually doing it? Most people are not. It just sits there. They drop it in an email, fire it off, and next year they're like, hey, can you get us those documents? And you can't find it. So instead, we make this small change that says, when you want to download a file, ask me where I should put it. So you just open up your finance folder, go to 2024 taxes, and name it 2024 1098 Chase for whatever property, and it's all there. So it's like these little, we're not organizing. We don't have an organizing routine monthly to clean up our downloads folder, or weekly to clean up our downloads folder. This is just part of our process. When we download, it asks us where, and we rename it appropriately right in our normal actions. And so setting up these little shortcuts of, hey, if it's tax season, let's put a shortcut to your taxes folder right on your desktop. That way it's super easy to find, because my taxes folder is a few clicks away, and I don't want to have to do that every time I'm downloading a file. So it's like little things like that we can teach you, hey, this can just be part of your workflow and how you do things. And then we're not organizing anymore. It's just, this is what we do. That's what sets apart real organization, good organization, is it's just where you put things. The silverware drawer and a little caddy in there that you put the forks all together. That's just what we do.
It's just what we do. Yeah, that's awesome. I like that phrase. I as I'm talking to you, I think about the books. Have you heard of the book by Dan Martell, Buy Back Your Time?
No. Oh, well, I've heard of it, but I haven't read it yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a good one, and I think it aligns with your messaging. And although it's not necessarily about just systems, it's more so like, hey, you need to always constantly be buying back your time for the things that you do not like or enjoy doing. And so, I think part of like as what I hear as a part of what you do is starting to know yourself. Because like as an example, like my team uses a lot of tools that I don't use. And it's just there's just a reality that I'm just not gonna use them. Um, and so, it's I think it's also helpful from that context of, kinda like knowing yourself and putting yourself in a position to succeed. Like, my team uses Notion, and, Josh, our director of marketing, set it up, and he's really good with that stuff and set up all this stuff and flows and this and that, and I'm like, once you guys got it in Notion, just send it to me in Slack because I'm not going to Notion. And so, but I think it's still great for them to use, and it's an important function of, like, our process and system. But I am a big believer of, like, hey, if you've got all these great processes and systems, and you can't find yourself like able to adopt the behavior, just hire someone that can help you and, execute on it. And it fits in with another book. Have you heard of any of the Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy books?
Yeah, who not how.
Yeah, Who Not How. Yeah. How do you interpret that?
Yeah, well, I mean, we are a who, for like, who's the person who can do this for me? And then I'm doing the same. I'm having somebody build out a marketing funnel for me. I don't have a full-time person, so I find people who can do the job really well, and I turn it over to them and trust them to handle it and involve me as much as I need to be involved in the process. But yeah, it's trying to take on too much is I feel like the entrepreneur's curse, especially, in a business like mine. It's been really hard to let go of a lot of things because I was, if you, I'm sure you read E-Myth, but I was the one who had the entrepreneurial seizure of, I was a technician and thought, and always had aspirations to start my own business. I grew up in a family that we had a small business and things like that. But, um, this is what I do. And so, me coming in and then building a business with me at the center and then having to piece that off can be really difficult. But then, once you get a taste of when you hire someone and they expand your capacity or do something better than you, it is a really exciting moment. It's that I remember vividly my a drive up to a client's house after I had hired my first assistant, and I had her on the phone, and I just started rattling off all of this stuff that had been knocking around in the back of my head that I wanted to done personally, that I just didn't have time for. And she's like, got it, got it, got it, got it. And then all of a sudden these things were done that had been on my to-do list for so long and I hadn't gotten around to it. I thought, oh my gosh. And then I became more profitable than ever because I wasn't handling all of these emails and all of this other stuff that was just administrative. And I could just look at my calendar and show up at the next appointment and just rake in the money. So it was really cool. And then other people creating systems for me. That was neat. It's good times.
Yeah, it's so epic. I'm sure that was such an awesome moment. Yeah. I get to experience that now too, which is just so cool. And there certainly is like this for people that are type A, kind of OCD, or even technicians, right? And maybe there's not that type A aspect of it, but there's just that pride, that sense of pride of like me doing it and me doing it right. The sense of freedom and really what you gain back. Like, we have young kids, the the 2 hours a day that you're not doing working on administrative things is literally 2 hours more of memories that you can create with your family, or 2 hours to go to the gym, or whatever it is that you wanna do, but you are buying back your time. And there are people out there suffering right now that, they're doing things that they do not need to be doing, but they just don't realize. They don't know what they don't know and don't realize that there's a solution, there's a path that, may not be as troublesome as they think, or expensive as they think, or or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me ask you this in terms of your so like when you guys work with someone to set up email systems, right? To like manage their inbox better and kind of reduce that. Tell me about that system. What does that look like?
Yeah, so the first part of the process is always discovery and looking at all these accounts and trying to figure out what are these here for? Why do they exist? What's working, what's not, and starting to strategize how we're actually going to use these accounts going forward. Are we going to leave it just the way it is, but then clean them up? Do we need to streamline it? Do we need to delete some accounts or create something new? So that's often the starting point, is just figuring out what's working and not, so we can recalibrate. And then once we start working on an account, the first thing to do is declare email bankruptcy. If you've got, 6,500 unread emails, you have to search to find what you're looking for. You're not scrolling through 6,500 emails to find it. You have to search. So why are we leaving it in the inbox? Let's pick a cutoff date, like 30 days, and archive everything after that. And then we can focus on an achievable goal, which is processing the last 30 days worth of email, or whatever that time frame is for you. So once we've gotten all that out of the mix, then we've got a much smaller set of emails to work with. And the first thing I want to do is actually stop the tide of all of these marketing emails that you're getting hammered with. I want you to go in and unsubscribe from all that stuff. We're not going to use a tool because the tools don't work permanently. So we do a little bit more manual process of let's actually go in and unsubscribe, because when we do it manually, then it shows us all of the other lists that they've added us to, and we can unsubscribe from all. And I want you to be brutally honest with yourself of what actually adds value that you read consistently. If you don't read that, you can go find that information somewhere else. This is the age of information. Like, let's get this out of here. And then from there, we got to figure out, okay, what's left? And how does this fit in to the overall, my overall week, and how I have to handle these emails? So I didn't say that well, but the idea is, what are these emails and when should I deal with them? Is this something that I can do right away? Is this something that should be done on Thursday mornings because I set aside time to do these types of activities then? Is this something that I shouldn't even be handling in the first place and these need to be rerouted somewhere else? Or is this something that I'm getting this question over and over again and it needs to be addressed on the website, so I never get it in the first place? So we start looking at what's left in that inbox so that we can figure out how we're going to address it going forward. And then after we've done all that, then we start automating of, like, let's send this stuff over here, let's send the rest over here. And I want as few automations as possible because I don't like it when automations break, and they do. So like, let's slow it down. Once we've culled, then we've only got a few good things left in our receipts and stuff, and those should be filed away somewhere else automatically. So our inbox is left clean for just people. And then it's teaching people how to triage and deal with that and stay on top of it. We don't have to get to inbox zero. It's about just staying in control. And you're going to be very close to inbox zero, if not achieving it every day after working with us. And most people save at least an hour a day. I had someone, he saves 3 hours a day, just from a couple sessions with us. It was crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome. How did you get into all of this?
I worked at the Apple Store for 7 years, and I taught people how to use their technology. And I saw that a lot of people would come in, they'd get this new Mac, and they'd transfer stuff from their old PC onto the Mac and be so excited to learn and start creating. And then they're hit with this mess. And it's like, no matter where you go, there you go, there you are. The mess came with them. And it's just like, how do I do what I want in the middle of this mess? Some people, they can just ignore it and get it done, and other people are overwhelmed. And a lot of people were really overwhelmed and needed help getting things cleaned up. So I started doing it on the side, just moonlighting in Apple, because they weren't serving that need. So I started to. And then once I built the business up to the point that it was It's totally replacing my salary. Then I went ahead and left, and just been doing this full time for the past 10 years.
Nice. And what like who is the kind of core avatar that you work with and kind of add the most value to?
Yeah, small teams typically, or in the case of like Chick-fil-A, that's 200 employees, but it's like tops 12 back office people. So,
That one Chick-fil-A had 200 employees?
yeah, they peak at about 200.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of volume.
That's insane.
A lot of volume. I mean, they can crank it out. So, and hiring this new or getting this new location set up, they'll probably hire about 100 people.
Geez, that makes sense. Yeah, because I mean, they're so busy that they often have 10, 15, 20 people working a shift. So that makes sense. Whereas when I had my
You got a lot of part-time kids, and you know,
yeah, yeah, interesting. Okay, so going back to your kind of your core avatars, basically small teams.
yeah. So back office of like less than 50 people, but the people that we work with most, it's between like 1 and 5 people kind of working in the back office and taking care of things. And then can go bigger from there. It's the exact same process, just at scale, and maybe working with different departments. But yeah, we love service industries, and e-commerce as well. But we do with a lot of service businesses.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. For anyone that wants to like self-implement or kind of just learn more about this, do you have any like resources or anything that they can kind of check out and get their hands on to kind of start educating themselves more?
Yeah, I actually put a guide together for this, and you can access it at thedigitalorganizer.com/franchise empire. And what that is a PDF of our process of getting organized. And so there's some text kind of breaks it all down, but then I link to videos giving you visuals and really breaking down even more. So it's not just like a book that you're reading about organization. Like you actually get to see things and then pause it and implement yourself. And it's the core ideas that we are teaching our clients and then help them adapt to their system. So it's basically what the core material that I use to train our new employees about our process and everything. That's what I'm giving to you in this. And so if you just go and download that, that's going to give you a really great start as to organizing your files and figuring out what that flow should look like. And then in my little introduction emails that I send to you, just say, hey, this is who we are. And let me give you some more stuff. I'm going to give you resources, video resources. Again, more stuff from our resource library and our training section on how do you actually do that declaring email bankruptcy? How do we automate email? I'm going to give you that. Just if you want to self implement, please go do it, especially if you're thinking about becoming a franchisee. You want to get your house in order beforehand because you're going to have a lot of work to do to get a new business set up. So let's clear the decks, get your email in order and really under control so that when you're ready to go, you can just go and hammer away and make it happen and get that new business up and running and profitable as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Cool, man. Sean, thanks for coming on. We'll make sure to drop that link so people can get their hands on that resource. But yeah, appreciate what you're doing. It's an interesting niche, really really cool. And yeah, I definitely believe from firsthand experience that entrepreneurs will it'll be life changing to get back more of their time. Really is what I'm hearing in terms of what you guys do.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It has been a pleasure talking to you, and we love doing this. I love what you're doing of helping people get their businesses profitable as soon as possible, and the support that they need to find something that works for them. It's just a fantastic mission. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Hey, before we go, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please subscribe here on YouTube if you haven't already. And the biggest thank you that you could ever give me is to share this episode with someone who you think will benefit. That means that we can share this message with more people and hopefully positively inspire them like we have you. So thank you. And until next time, go build your empire.